Hey everyone, it's Scott Allen. Have you ever felt the presence of someone you've lost? Like a whisper in the wind, a familiar scent in an empty room, or a feeling deep in your soul that they're still with you? My guest today on the Enlightened Light podcast knows that connection is real, and she's dedicated her life to proving it. Reverend Rivera is a gifted psychic medium, a Lilydale trained minister, and a bridge between this world and the next. Born in Panama and rooted in the ancient wisdom of her Kuna Indian ancestors, she's been seeing spirit and angels since she was just 5 years old. She calls them lolos, loved ones who live on. And today she's here to share their messages, their love, and the undeniable truth that life continues beyond what we see. So get ready for a powerful conversation that just might change the way you see the world. Let's welcome Reverend Rivera to the show. Hello there. How are you? It's so nice to see you, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you. I am so excited to meet with you this morning, and I cannot tell you how thrilled I was to hear you say the word lolos.
And I'm like, is it LOLO? Is it Lolo? Like laughing out loud? I don't know what it is.
A little bit of both, probably.
It's great.
Yeah. When I was very young, I worked, when I graduated from high school, I worked for the phone company. I let them put me through college, and they loved an acronym. So, every little shortened process that we had to do, there was always an acronym for it. So I fell in love with acronyms, and I found myself saying loved ones who live on in spirit often enough.
Perfect. I'd like to go back to that moment. You were 5 years old and you start seeing spirit. What was that like for you at 5 years old? Did you know even then that this was something bigger than it was? Or than what it seemed?
Thank you for the question. I find myself answering this a lot, and it's almost one of those things where you don't want to become mechanical about an answer. So I try to give it insight all the time. I don't ever remember a time where I wasn't seeing or interacting with spirit. And, but I remember when I was 5, I was very close always with my father's family because they live in the same city that I do. And my great-grandmother passed away. And it was the first time where someone that I knew had passed. So I was very used to seeing people in varying degrees of opacity. And so when I would experience seeing someone in spirit, they just looked a little less fleshy, a little less solid than when I saw, well, I'll say regular people. And so when my grandmother passed away, I saw her in spirit form standing next to her in her casket. And so it was the first time that I had experienced the need to ask a question about it, because up to that point, I never saw 2 versions of one person. So I freaked out a little bit, and because that's what you do when you're 5. And so I started to ask my mother questions, and much different than perhaps how most people's parents might react. My mother was stunned and thrilled and enthusiastic because, well, she's a medium too. And so then she could begin to explain our history and why I was wired the way that I was wired. So she was so excited.
You still see them that way?
I do. So it's more immersive now because how I experience spirit is visual and cognitive and sentient. So it's an entirely immersive experience. I see them like I see you, and it's wonderful. And when I was little, it was confusing because the only thing that I saw differently was angels. They just to me looked like glittery glittery something or another, amorphous,
Mm-hmm.
glittery bursts of light. And so I knew that there was something bigger than me. I was always connected to angels. I just didn't know how to explain it.
Yeah. I've never seen them that way. It's always mind's eye. And so I think, for me, I was able to happily push it away. It's just my imagination. And it's hard to push something away like that when you see it in the room with you.
You're right. And I always wonder about these sorts of experiences because, because I'm curious about people's stories. I'm sure you are
Sure.
too. And I think that when I was really little, I had this knowing at 5. I got in trouble when I was in kindergarten because I liked girls and I was chasing girls all the time. And so I knew that I was different because I was having these supernatural experiences, but also because I was having these very physical experiences. And so I learned to be a little private, except for when I was talking to my
Mm-hmm.
family about the things that I was experiencing. And so I think that with like angels and with people on the other side, with loved ones on the other side, they were just so natural. And because of my mom, I wasn't taught that it was a bad thing or like we shouldn't be having that experience. Did anyone shun you for it, Scott?
Well, to be honest, it's been there my whole life, but I can only see it now. I didn't see it at the time. I just thought I've got a really overactive imagination, but spirit was giving me this intense curiosity, and I kept crossing paths with mediums. Um, Sylvia Brown, for as an example, she was one, but I never thought it was me. But I remember searching for the answer, like there's something going on with me. I just don't know what it is. And then it really hit me in the head. I mean, it wasn't just the visual. I was hearing them with my own ears, and I was recording their voice on recorders, and anywhere I went, they would talk to me and reach out. And so that's when I knew something's definitely not normal here. And then when I figured it out, it kind of stopped. But it's never been overtly, other than that, it's never been overtly in my face. I mean, clear audiently it was, but not in a visual way. I've only seen one thing once, and it was this amoeba shaped misty thing that came across the ceiling, and I was in someone's living room. Other than that, it's never happened to me ever. So I think it
Oh,
was there, but
I like that you used the word amoeba because I think my correlation to amorphous,
yeah,
glittery uh, experience is somewhat similar. Maybe my world is just a little bit more glittery, but I think it's very much the same, and it's how I experience angels all the
yeah.
time. But when I realized they could talk, that made a whole different, change in my life. I always felt, and I don't know if this had happened with you in a similar way, but because I always felt a little bit different, it was in some way isolating, and I would get very angsty teenager uh, energy about the thought process, which was, why am I alone? Until I finally asked the angels, and they said, honey, you're not alone. We loved you so much that we gave you 2 worlds to fit into, not just
Wow.
one. And I was like, oh, that's so
That's
sweet.
nice.
I love
I
that. Did
experienced
it feel
that.
that
Yeah,
way?
well, I experienced the aloneness much later in life. I mean, I was early 50s when I first embraced this, and that's when I felt the aloneness because people didn't understand it. My
Yeah.
mom, God bless her soul, she right away just said, "Well, why now?" But she embraced it. Do you know? And she had questions. I mean, I had questions. I don't know why now either. I couldn't give her the answer. The answer, after contemplating and meditating on this for years, is that it was always there. It wasn't right now. It's just this was the time for me to accept it and move on and embrace it. But there were people who that I knew that turned on me, and tried to tell people I was a fraud, and it's just, I was just trying to figure it all out. It wasn't the case at all. But when I found my community within the mediumship world, the journey within and some of these other places, I felt that I came into myself, and I learned that, sometimes you just have to let people go. It's just not, you have to keep living and being who you are. And so once I found my community, I didn't find that loneliness anymore, but it was hurtful. And you still get that. There are people who are jealous, who spread stories and lies and, about what we do. And that's okay. You know what I mean? They've got to live with themselves, but I don't feel the loneliness anymore. I don't feel that.
I'm so glad.
Yeah. Yeah.
I find a lot of similarities between life as a medium and also life as a gay woman, because I had to come out of both closets, the gay closet and the broom closet.
Spiritual.
I
Yes.
had to, right?
Spiritual closet, we
I
call it.
had to find my community, and I had to let go of a lot of people that didn't or couldn't support me for both
Yeah.
reasons. And I have chosen family, which is a concept that came to me through knowledge and growth in my gay life, but it also helped me to find my tribe and to find my people in my spiritual life as well. And so I love it when I find people who are both part of both communities. And I find that, so I live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is like such a cold place to come from, such a beautiful tropical
Yeah.
location, Panama, and to live in Pittsburgh. It's so terribly cold, but nonetheless, I find it's a town that has really needed healing. And it has a, I don't want to say a dark history, but I will definitely say it has a heavy
Yeah.
history. And it's a hardworking town, and I love it here. I wouldn't rather live anywhere else, because I love the people here. But I built community because I felt that I needed it. So,
Yeah.
I started a spiritual seekers group so that I could have friends to talk to about all this stuff. And it's been tremendously fun.
Wonderful.
So I like that
Yeah.
feeling of community.
I'd love to ask you, because I mean, I know how I work, but I love to see how other people work. And I think it's really helpful to the people who listen to understand a little bit about what we do and how it works. How do you know the difference between your own thoughts and a true message from spirit?
Thank you. So, the way that I like to explain the majority of the work that I do is that I help people connect to their own soul, the soul of their loved ones, and to their guides and angels. And the way that I know the difference is that loved ones come with a point to prove about who they are. So they're giving me something and showing me something and making me feel something that directly correlates to the memories that they had about being here. Because they're not in that same shape and form, as you know, anymore. So they're helping me to understand the version of them that they believe that the person I'm sitting with will remember.
Yeah.
Um, when I'm connecting to someone's soul, I'm literally opening up the story of their soul, and I hear it in their voice. I experience in their perspective, and then when I'm connecting to guides and angels, everything comes as a sparkly vision, and they're talking about this person and giving me guidance and insight. So really the only thing that I have to decipher, for lack of anything better to call it, is the messages from their loved ones, because they're helping me understand something that's outside of the soul's realm of this person.
Yeah. And I don't get that. So for me, it's almost like if I said to you the word cheeseburger right now, you can picture it. You know what a cheeseburger is. You
Mm-hmm.
can almost smell it, taste it, but you weren't just thinking of a cheeseburger, more than likely. And that's how it is for me. Like, why are they showing me violins? Why are they showing me Disney World? Why are they showing me, a big cake with candles on it? What does that mean? And it's not something that I was thinking about. It isn't something that was in my head a second ago, but there it is. And that's how they feed me the visuals or the thoughts or the ideas or the knowing, because I am very cognitive as well. Clear sentient, definitely. Not so much clairaudient, but it does happen from time to time with names and things like that. So it's really interesting. You were at Lilydale too. I mean, what was that like for you?
Um, it was so I attended the fellowships of the spiritualist seminary, and it was, I jokingly referred to it as Hogwarts
Yeah.
for real
Yeah.
people, because um, we learned so much about everything that was magical and everything that was of interest to me. So the foundational pastor of Fellowships of the Spirit was Elaine Thomas, and she went to Spirit last year. But during the time, the 30 years that she was my teacher, oh, she was the most fantastic woman. She was a little tough, but I love a tough teacher. And she used to be the like event manager for Tony Robbins,
Oh,
the
okay.
big
Yeah.
motivational
Mm-hmm.
guru. But she left working for him to start this school for herself, and she was a really good teacher. So our days were filled with information and experience and knowledge, and our nights were filled with connection and friendship and exploration. And it was just like we would take everything that we learned and then we'd practice all night. None of us got any
Yeah.
sleep. We'd fall asleep during meditation, and ate, really good vegetarian food. And it was just the most marvelous experience of my
Really is
lifetime.
wonderful.
I really loved it.
So are you on all the time, or are you able to turn it off?
I think that anybody who um, is a professional at anything that they do has to have time to
I agree.
themselves. And so when I'm working, I am 100%, excuse my language, balls to the wall for
Mm-hmm.
spirit. And then when I'm working, it had better be a matter of life and death for my life and death, in order for me to be interrupted, because I believe that I'm entitled to have the life of a regular
Yeah.
girl.
I remember opening up and not being able to control it, and it was 24/7, and it was crazy. It was exhausting. And I
It was
still talk to mediums who say, "Oh, I'm always on. I'm always on." I'm like, "Oh my God. I mean, I can't do that. I can't, driving all over the place and having them talking to you and giving you thoughts and I could physically feel them. It was like they were sitting on, you could feel the weight on my shoulders. It was the craziest thing. And I had never experienced that before. Even to this day, if I'm reading and I feel they're here, I mean, I can feel them. I put my hand out and they don't feel like you and I, but it's this fuzzy, almost like a thing of cobwebs. And you can tell when you come in it and come out of it and how tall they are and how wide. I mean, it's the weirdest thing. And I've had that happen to me. If I was dealing with that all the time, it would be just nutso. I just don't think I could do it. And I set up this many, many years ago. I set up an intention, I guess, would be the right thing. That when I sit down in front of my computer, or I sit down in front of a person to read, or when I stand up and do a platform demonstration, that's when you come. Open yourself up. And even sometimes I'll be sitting, I go to the journey within. I'm going to be there in a few weeks, and I'll do a platform demonstration. And there are times when I'm sitting in the congregation waiting for my turn to go up, and they're nagging me, and I'm like, nope, waiting room's over there. Go wait in the waiting room. If you're still for somebody when I get up there, come back, because I find that that gets a little bit. You have to set the boundaries up, and you
Yes,
have
you
to
do.
trust too, right? I mean, I think trust is such a huge part of what we do. If you don't trust, what have you got? You know?
This is very true. I remember when I first started doing, public demonstrations, and my prayer was a little bit more fervent and a little bit more, pleading. But when I was in school, and I think this is a lovely thing, I will share with you that my teacher, Elaine Thomas, was the student of Reverend Sandy Edith Wendling, and she was a student of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. So I'm a fourth generation spiritualist in the line of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, which means nothing to anybody except for to me, really.
That's awesome, though.
In any case, I think it's kind of cool because I will watch anything Sherlock Holmes related just because. But when we were going through school, almost immediately she taught us a prayer, and it goes like this. She says, "O God, as we open the door to communication in the unity of the Holy Spirit, the great I Am presence of the universe, I give thanks, for I know the words spoken will be filled with your love, truth, wisdom, and understanding of the highest." And so I have a very Pavlovian response to that, because to me, that is the putting out of the shingle that says, you're open. I'm open. Same thing. Now.
When you do that, you're open. And, okay, welcome. Yeah.
Yes, welcome.
You know what, though? Can I just say this, though? I love that you said that, because I feel that so many people in the, when we talk about in the real world, I mean, not mediums and spiritualists, but they have a fear, and they're taught by religion, regular, whether it's Christianity or whatever, that what we do is wrong and aligned with negative entities, the devil, Satan, whatever you want to call it. And we call in God. We call in spirit. We call in, all that is good. And that is the essence of what we do, because we are here to serve spirit, but to help people on their behalf. It is all about goodness. And I think that is one thing I wish people would take away from this, is we do not need to fear it. We're all just souls.
I have to agree with you. I think that I wrote down one little. This was my note for when we talked. Okay, that you can see. That it describes the three little things that I do, and so what I think is that I think every little thing that I do serves an intention. I say, if I prove the existence of your loved ones, it's because I'm proving their divinity and their connection to the eternal field of collective consciousness. They come to us to bring hope of their existence and our eventual reconnection. So I seek to prove the existence of our loved ones in the afterlife, therefore proving the existence of the afterlife, therefore proving the existence of the Creator. So everything that I do, every single thing that I do, seeks to make manifest the glory of God.
Beautiful.
And I think that it has been a very long, and I'm going to say illustrious career. I've gotten to help hundreds of thousands of people over the course of my 30 years in the business. And, I have had wonderful feedback. Oh, trust me, I've had some really terrible ones too at a couple of times, where people were angry, or I couldn't get to them, or I couldn't make my schedule meet theirs, or they just didn't like my reading style, and that's okay. I am not everybody's cup of whatever soup, or spicy tortilla soup. I'm a little spicy.
That's all right.
Who cares? But I do my very best to serve an intention, and I think we have to have intentions for everything.
Absolutely,
Scott.
Absolutely.
How else would we teach the work?
I'd love to ask you, and I sometimes get asked this when I do my own podcast, when people have me on as a guest, and no names, but there are readings, there are messages that stick with us. Some are life changing. Is there one that stands out for you as one of the most powerful moments you've had?
Absolutely. I had a little shop. I call my office all the time the Divine Wisdom Shop. And I had a little shop on the trolley line in Pittsburgh. We have trolleys or streetcars, and so my shop was right across the thing. So I would get people from all over the city. And then I had this woman who was a television reporter, and she would fly in once per month from Little Rock, Arkansas, to come and to see me because the very first time that she came, she wanted to connect to her son that had passed away, and he was standing on the like cubby. I had like a cubby inside my office, and it had like a half wall, and I had my setup in there, and the store was out front, and so she sat down, and he was leaning against the wall with his arms crossed in front of him, and he said, well, none of the other three ladies that you took me to could hear me. What's going to make this lady any different? And I just looked at him and I said, young man, how dare you? I can absolutely hear you. And poof, he was gone. Mm. He just pulled his consciousness away from me. And so I told the mom what he said. And she's like, I did go to three other ladies before you. And I said, well, he's gone now. I guess I scared him. So I said, I described what he looked like. And she said, oh, my goodness, absolutely. And, validated everything that I experienced in that moment with that young boy, even though it was only a 2-second interaction. And so she said, it's my son. His name is Tyler. So I did what any good auntie would do, because I don't have children of my own, but I have a couple of nieces and nephews. So I yelled at him a little bit. I did. I said, you come back here, young man. And I was like, just because I can hear you doesn't mean that you should run away. And I know that you can hear me, so you come back. And then it took a little bit of coaxing, but he finally did come back. And then I had a conversation with him over the course of several years that changed my life, because he taught me firsthand, in the most detailed of ways, what it is like to commit suicide, what it was like to face the misperceptions of your family and your friends' guilt and anger, and what it was like to go into spirit as a child, what it was like to ascend, what it was like to inaugurate yourself to the process of being amongst your angels and your elders and your ancestors on the other side, in a hugely profound way that no one ever took the time to tell me. And so it was validating for her. It was validating for me. And he taught me more about the process of death than any other spirit. I will never forget him.
And that's a good point, because I want to say too, so many people do suffer here with the loss of someone who has taken their own life. And again, it's religion saying that, we don't know where they go. We don't know. What do you think? What is your thought?
I think that everything that we do is a choice, whether we stay here. And I think of this life being somewhat akin to one of those haunted houses that you go to, that it's like, $20 and it has 5 exits. And if you can make it all the way to the end, you get your money back. And I went to one of those at Niagara Falls when I was in my early 20s. And my girlfriend at the time, her son was trying to be brave and walk me through it. And I was walking so close to him that by the time we got out of the haunted house, he had lipstick marks on the back of his hoodie. I kept bumping into him, and I kept saying, I'm going to leave. I got to leave. I got to get out of here. I can't be in here. This is too scary to me. And so as we approached every door, every opportunity to leave, I threatened, and they begged me to stay. I was like, I can't do this. I can't. I'm terrified. I'm just really horrified, but they wouldn't let me leave. And I look at our life sometimes that way, because there are many people who experience darkness and who have either mental illness, who are suffering from depression, who are suffering from life circumstances that they know or feel that they can't control. And so we don't know what anyone came here to learn. We don't know the brilliancy of their soul or their soul's plan, especially if we're not asking. And sometimes people need to go because the learning that they need to do isn't going to happen at this level of existence. And so maybe it can only happen with the help and the tutelage of angels. Yeah. And so I cannot, for the life of me, for one single moment, believe that a God that is so loving, a creator that is so everything amazing, would, at the moment of our weakest disposition, turn away from us and like kick us when we're down. I don't believe, there's no part of me that can possibly believe that there's not mercy big enough for the weakest of us.
Well, and I think too, how is mental illness any different than cancer or some other disease that we might have? And you don't fault someone for having cancer or for having heart disease. How can you fault them for having mental illness? It's all part of it. It's a symptom of it. I agree with you. I agree with you on that 100%. What do you think it's like to die?
I had a near-death experience when I was very young. And I remember my father had taken us to some waterfalls. And these were, I'm going to say this with the most amount of love and respect, but these were gentle little ripply waterfalls, just kind of like white bread version of waterfalls. And where I'm from, and on my grandfather's property in Panama, we had like roaring waterfalls. And as you know, 4 and 5-year-olds, we were diving off these cliffs. I knew how to swim. I was a strong swimmer. And we went to these little white bread, waterfalls here in Pittsburgh, and I got sucked under by the undertow. And I remember, gurgling and getting sucked down. And I'm struggling, trying to get to the top. And I didn't have enough strength, and I got sucked under. And I remember the water filling my lungs. And I remember looking up so that I could still see the surface, and I could see the sun on the other side of the water. And I remember thinking, this is so incredibly scary and beautiful, because I didn't know what was going to happen. And I remember closing my eyes because I couldn't breathe anymore. And I remember that the light that seemed to be there before I closed my eyes was the same light that was there after I closed my eyes. And so it really, to me, just felt like I was swimming towards the sun. And I did so with the remembrance of being surrounded by all of the loved ones that I never even knew, all of the angels that I never even knew. And so I didn't feel alone. I wasn't scared. I just remember later, waking up and being resuscitated on the banks of the river. And life just was never the same for me, because after that, I wasn't afraid of anything. I was the ballsiest little girl you ever met, because I thought, well, I already tried to die. You can't hurt me. So I just didn't take any licks from anybody, because I figured if I was supposed to die, I would have died. But I didn't. And I wasn't afraid, because I knew from the light that something so incredibly beautiful was there just waiting for us. And I can't tell you that I, fully went into the light and I, blossomed on the other side and then I came back. It wasn't like that. It was just knowing that it was like a mirrored reflection from here to there.
We shouldn't fear it.
I hope that makes
We shouldn't fear it.
No. I've tried to die a couple of other times, but I didn't. I'm still here because they keep telling me I have work to do.
Yeah. Well, we had to meet. I mean, that's the first thing. That's not saying tonight you have to go. No, you have to stick around. Now that I met you, you can't go anywhere. You have to hang
Thank
out.
you.
But what do you hope people take away from this conversation?
I hope that people take away from this conversation that everybody is just wired differently. Some people can play piano. Some people can make marvelous taco salad. I don't know. Some people have a knack for perfumes or for designing eyebrows or can put on, they're the most magical performance. Like to me, I see, anything that looks glittery and has makeup on it, models or drag queens or whatever. And I think, oh, that's an angel. They're
Oh.
glittery, right? I think that all of us are just created differently. And I think that everybody has something that they're really good at. And there are some of us who have something inside of us that's created in a way to help us just be a guidepost. I think about those little cairn stones that they put on the path in Ireland for when you're hiking, and it just tells you go this way. And I think that mediums and psychics are very similar to that. We're just supposed to point you in a direction. We're just supposed to help you find your way. And if my belief about our Creator being merciful and kind and awesome is correct, I know that they would not make us to be junk. And so I just think that I hope that people take a thought away from our conversation today, that we hold sacred space for them. That's our intention, is to help them find their sun above the water, to help them find their north. Because sometimes we all get a little lost and we need a little help. And there are plenty of people who are willing to listen, because I think a medium just stands between the worlds. We just listen, we just relay, and so that's what I really hope they take away from it.
I hope so too. And we're coming just about to the end here, but will you come back on another time? Because I know I can already feel the messages coming from the listeners. When they hear this, they're going to want to hear more, because this has really been a beautiful conversation. And you've given us so much hope, wisdom, and really the beautiful reminder that love never dies. Our loved ones are still with us, guiding us, speaking to us. You just have to take the time to listen. So I also want to invite people to your website. If they want to learn more about you, to book a session with you or whatever it is, they can go to ReverendMarjorieRivera.com. You do readings as well, or?
I do personal readings, all different sorts. Any kind of a reading, sign me up. It's my favorite
Do you
thing
do
to
demonstration work? I don't know if I asked you that before. Do you do platform work?
Yeah, generally at least once a week.
Good. Let's work together. I'll come to Pittsburgh.
I'll
come to Pittsburgh.
Okay.
That'd be fun. Okay, people, watch your email, watch your inbox. We'll figure something out. And I have to say too, if this conversation moved you, if it sparked something in your heart, don't let it end here. Subscribe to the Enlightened Light podcast so you never miss an episode. Let's keep exploring, keep expanding, and keep deepening our connection to spirit together. And if you want to learn more about Reverend Rivera and the incredible work she does, visit her website, again, ReverendMarjorieRivera.com. It's all there, resources, events, ways to connect. And also, please check out my website, MediumScottAllen.com, so you'll know when Reverend Rivera and I are going to work together, and all the other events and private readings and things that I have going on. So thank you for being here, for opening your heart, and for walking this journey with us. Until next time, stay open, stay curious, and keep living your best enlightened life. See you next time.